Welcome to Factorio. My name is Nilaus, and this is the culmination of more than 7,000 hours of Factorio. At this point, I feel qualified to make a video on how to play Factorio as a single video, so this is what we are. This video is intended to be instructional, informative, inspirational, and maybe even entertaining as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, and by the end of it, you will know exactly how to play Factorio from start to finish in a very effective manner. As we land on the planet, everything is manual, and that's not why we play Factorio. We want automation, so we start with some manual mining, some manual tree chopping, some manual crafting as well, and the objective is to get up a number of smelters and miners so that we can just grab materials instead of mining it ourselves. Good start to consider in the beginning is about 16 to 20 iron smelters, 4 copper smelters, 4 stone miners, and 16 to 20 coal miners as well. Before we even can start automating, we need to get a little bit of electricity, and I built this little module and we replicate it here 10 times. That's as much as it can be supported, and then you can upgrade it as you need more power. We want to start automating, so in order to do that, I lay down the foundation of the very first assemblers I want, but we can't build them yet because we don't have the research. So let's research automation, and for that we need a science lab and 10 red science packs. So let's get those built, and then we can research the very first thing. With automation completed, we have now started our journey into the wondrous world of Factorio automation, and the first things we want to do is make a little build for automation for green circuits, for belts, for red science, and ammo if you feel that biters are encroaching on your territory already at this point. And this is actually the first milestone we reached, and by having automation, now we have a slightly more automated, we can mine somewhat automated, we can build somewhat automated, and we have a few things available for us to build the next stage. So if you are a regular for the channel, then you know the drill. Please consider hitting the like button. It helps a lot with the visibility of this video, and also shows you that you like this video, of course. And of course, if you're new around here, welcome, and please consider subscribing for more factory related content. The next stage is what I call the jumpstart base, since this allows us to jumpstart our real base by creating everything we need to build in one place, and this includes inserters, assemblers, and belts, as well as completing every single red and green science available in the game, all in one little base. This makes base creation so much easier because you have everything available: inserters, assemblers, belts, and science already here. Once you have this built, it is natural to also want to expand it to include steel, because we need power poles, we need Mark II assemblers, and we need to be able to make steel furnaces for faster creation of faster smelting. Also, we would also like to get stone production going, so we have nice stone bricks for our sacred path as we move forward. This is the next big milestone, as we have now automated the creation of building materials as well as all of the green science, all the way from mining to finished product. This will allow us to really speed up on our production or creation of the real base, which we will start on. If you're interested in more content, then check the description or the pinned comment below with everything you need. There are playlists of every type of Factorio content you could want to watch. There's startup series, there's Megabase-in, there's Death World, there's modded, there's master classes on designs, and all of the blueprints I use in all of my series are available with links below. We will use the production from our jumpstart base for building our future base, which means we can now focus more on designing and building, while the jumpstart base is replenishing all that we consume while we continue working on red and green science. I'm using my city block design to make a structured main boss base. This gives me the structure I need, and for the base, it allows me for easy expansion and a high degree of readability, which is something I really value when making content for YouTube. With the structure in place, the very first thing we should start on is making some big smelting columns. I have blueprints already prepared for this, so we'll build some copper smelting, some iron smelting, and some steel smelting here as well. With the smelting completed, we can now drag this material up on the main bus, so it's available for our future builds, together with stone bricks and coal that we also need. The real advantage of making a main bus is the scaling of raw materials and the scaling of final product are independent, so you can keep extracting materials from the bus for more production, and then go back and add more mining and smelting as you see fit. We will be making 3 things initially off the bus: the green circuits, the science, and the hub, and we'll start with the green circuit. The green circuit here is a small build, but I'm reserving the rest of this city block for more green circuits as we scale up and progress with the base. You need a lot of green circuits, so make room for parallel builds here. With the jumpstart base taking care of all of the red and green signs, there's really no need for us to rebuild the green signs here until we actually start making the military signs. Whether you want to focus on the military signs or the hub first is really up to you, but I prefer getting the military signs started so that we also have some better defenses and better ammo as well, while we then work on our construction of the hub. Military science requires a lot of iron, copper, steel, but also a lot of stone and coal as well. So at this point, we really need the bus fully operational, and everything we have on the bus is being used to support the military science. The next build is the hub, which will completely replace everything that we were doing in the jumpstart base. The hub consists of 3 different tiers and 3 different parts. One is focused on belts and inserters, another on assemblers and power poles, and the last on pipes, trains, and later on also uranium power. With the hub and military science online, it's quite clear that we are using a lot more materials and way more than we can support with our starter base. So we need to get some trains going so we can expand out to the first outpost, well, first of many outposts even. And this is also something that I have predetermined or pre-designed blueprints for, so it's easy to set up yet another outpost. This would be a great point of the video to insert a sponsorship or an ad activation for a random product, but I don't do this on this channel ever. Instead, I rely on the goodwill of the community to support me through Patreon. This is an ideological choice that I've made since I hate those fake ads that seem to be everywhere here on YouTube. So I hope that the content I produce will motivate some people to pitch in and help support by pledging on Patreon, as that is the way that I keep this channel running. Thank you very much, everyone who's supporting. So now things have been relatively simple. We've been dealing with a limited number of products and they've all been transported on belts. But the next stage, this is where we have the objective of going to blue science, which is a major step up both in complexity and also in capabilities. Blue science requires oil refining, and because it requires sulfur and red circuits, which in turn require plastic. So sulfur and plastic are the 2 oil products that we need to deal with at the core of this stage. This stage is where a lot of new players get stuck in the game because it kind of changes from dealing with items on belts to dealing with liquids in pipes, and then there are some things that changes. With our military science operational from previously, it is a good time to also secure your perimeter, push back some biters, and also establish a wall around your base, depending of course on how much pressure you are from the biters. If you're running low on initial resources, this is also a good time to tap a few outposts with trains. We have the capabilities, we've set up our train, we have the blueprints, so we can set up a few more extra locations to tap some more resources and bring it back home to our base. With our perimeter secured and our resources increased, it is time to sort of take another step up on the tech tree ladder. And this is where we start working on oil design. Now, I have a single oil design that I spent a lot of time on designing. It works brilliantly because it serves in the early game, and it also is possible to scale it up to the mid game and the extreme late game, and thereby not tearing the whole thing down and building it, but simply having already left room for improvements and upgrades as we go forward. We will of course need to get some oil into this build in order to yield some initial petroleum. These are very small quantities, but it's certainly enough for our sulfur and plastic build at this stage of the game. For both sulfur and plastic, I have specific builds. These look a bit strange, but the reason why they look like this is because, like all of my builds, they can also be scaled up, and therefore they can be expanded and upgraded as we progress to the mid and late game in this base. The only additional resources we need inbound is quite a bit of coal that we need for plastic, but we also need a bit of iron as well as a bit of water. And once we have that, we have quite a bit of plastic and also some sulfur. We also have a box of sulfuric acid, which we are not going to use right now, but it'll be handy for batteries and for uranium mining much later on. Sulfur and plastic go back on the bus, leave 2 lines for plastic and 1 lane for the sulfur. All of our liquids also go back on the bus because that makes it easy for us to drag them out into future builds. The first ingredient for the blue science is done. This is sulfur, and we will then use the plastic, combine it with some green circuits that we already have, together with some copper that we already have as well, and combine it into red circuits. It is worth noting that these are created extremely slowly, so be prepared to scale this up with multiple parallel builds as needed. Also remember to bring red circuits back into your hub because it will be used for a lot of additional products. So you combine it on the same line as the green circuits, and the hub will then take care of all of the new builds that will be enabled when you have the blue science already unlocked. Now we have both the red circuits and the sulfur for our blue science. So the only thing we need as we build the design for the blue science is to bring in some iron and some steel to make the engines, and then complete the blue science build, and then of course lead it back onto the science labs so we can start unlocking some research here. This is yet another major milestone, as we now have oil and blue science unlocked, and this is what really unlocks the mid-game in Factorio. And our research should be heading towards robots, because that is basically the most unique thing about Factorio, is how robots can help you scale exponentially. If you're still watching at this point, then you must be interested in the content, and thank you for that. I produce quite a lot of content, not only here on YouTube, but I also stream on Twitch. I live stream every evening, almost every evening at least, at 8 PM Central European Time. This is at twitch.tv/Nilaus, and I'm streaming mainly factory games, but this is always changing depending on what is new and exciting, so feel free to drop by and say hi over there. The objective of this stage is to make robots do the work for us, so we can focus more on designing, building, and expanding, and thereby grow the base faster and bigger. A lot of things in this base are left at a very low throughput, such as we don't really have a lot of copper, iron, steel, smelting going on, and I don't want to expand that until we have robots so they can do the work for us. So this is why I will be straining my base quite a bit to get to this stage, but I think it's very much worth it. There's still quite a few steps remaining before we can really make robots, but I've made this little robot rush design to get us there quickly. This little build contains a number of redundant products in order to make it simple. You can even build this with just some items from boxes instead of hooking it up to the bus. With the robot rush build done, we are now starting to accumulate robots slowly but surely. And as we start spreading out more roboports to the base so we can get a wider coverage of a roboport cover of robots, then we see the problem that robots need charging, and the more we have, the more charging we need, and we don't have the power because we're running on a very small coal power. So we desperately need to upgrade our power, and that's something we want to do. It's also something that's super annoying to build without the robots, so it fits perfectly to get the robots to help us on this. We are going to focus on solar power to supplement our failing coal power. Solar power requires both solar panels but also accumulators to store the energy during the night when the solar panels are not producing. We have most of the things we need for solar panels. We have the steel, the green circuits, and the copper. For the accumulators, we have the iron, but we don't have the batteries. So that's the next thing we need to make. We built a small build for batteries, which will supply the accumulator build as well as yellow science when we get to that build. With all products available, they are combined into a solar panel accumulator build, which will then stockpile all of the things we need, but it will also be available later so that when we want to make satellites at the end of the game, we can take this and lead it up to the satellite production. A little bonus with this build is the fact that it contains everything we need for laser turrets, so I'll build it here instead of dragging batteries back to the hub. When it comes to solar panel accumulator designs, there are two important priorities that must be respected. First is the ratio. It must be as close to 25 solar panels to 21 accumulators as possible, as that is the ideal ratio, so that the solar fills the accumulators during the night, and the accumulators will then discharge during the night and be empty by morning when the solar panels kick in again. The second priority is more of a design priority. You want to avoid the unfortunate four-way rotational symmetry that so easily emerges when working on a square grid. I came up with this pattern, which I'm very happy with since it fulfills both of my two requirements, and so I'm using this for all of my solar power moving forward. It also so happens that it can be fit quite neatly into a city block with a bit of space for roboports, so the robots can actually build this for us and we can then move on to other things. A few other things to take care of while letting the robots accumulate and researching all of the blue science is expanding the trains to add more copper and securing the perimeter even further if you need that. This is a stage where Factorio really sets itself apart from any other game. The exponential scaling that is achieved once you have robots is absolutely amazing, and probably one of the reasons we really love Factorio, isn't it? This is another major milestone that is achieved, and we can now look forward to the late game with yellow and purple science. As we reach this milestone, it seems like an opportune moment to remind you about liking the video and subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. If you want to see extension of this video into the Megabase domain, then let me know in the comment section below. With the productivity gain we now have from robots and the expansion we have of the base, it is time to take another look at the tech tree and consider what is the next step. We now have the choice between purple science and yellow science, which one to do first. My recommendation is to always do yellow science first, even though in the crafting menu it looks like purple science should be first. The reason why I favor the yellow science is because the tech that it unlocks are way more useful to get earlier than the tech we unlock from the purple science. And this includes the personal roboport, the portable fusion reactor, and the logistics system. These technologies will further speed up your build and your convenience, which is not really the case when coming to purple science. For the yellow science, there are a few things we need that we don't have available on the bus as of yet, and that is the processing units or blue circuits, and these require a lot of green circuits. Also, we need to make low density structures, which requires a lot of copper. So before we can do this, it's probably a good idea to do a big upgrade of our base now that we have robots available. This upgrade is something you can start scheduling and just do the upgrade. Then start working on expansion, biter clearance, this perimeter defense, design, whatever you choose while the robots are busy upgrading your base. You may have wondered why I'm using yellow belts so late in the game and I haven't switched to red even though we had the capability for a long time. And the simple reason is that I don't bother to do all of the manual upgrade and I wait until I have robots available. And also I am building up a large stockpile of red belts so that I can start doing this upgrade pretty efficiently. So now we can do the upgrade and we can just let the robots do the work while we focus on other things. With red belts updated, there's now a mismatch between the belt speed and the smelting speed in our smelting columns. This is fixed by upgrading all of our stone furnace to steel furnace, thereby doubling the smelting speed to match the doubling of the belt speed. This is an easy upgrade and robots can do it because the steel and the stone furnaces have the same footprint. Some would argue to use the electric furnace, but I don't like those. They're very red circuit and steel intensive, and they don't give any faster production than a steel furnace, and I would have to redo the entire design just to get these electric furnaces, and on top of that I'd have to redo it again later on when I want to use modules and beacons. Green circuits must also be upgraded to match the new speed of the red belts, both on the inbound and outbound side. We can now get more copper and iron in and also more green circuits out, and we need all the green circuits we can get to feed into our blue circuit build. So this is yet another task that is easy to do with robots, and we can just let them do the work for us. And now comes the time for the processing units or blue circuits, and these are, as we mentioned, extremely green circuit intensive. The design I have here is a modular design that can be upgraded during different stages in your base development. It starts out consuming 2 red belts of green circuits, that corresponds to 60 per second, but it can be upgraded to consume up to 4 blue belts, which is 180 green circuits per second. The second product for yellow science we must build is the low density structure. This is a design that can be doubled because we need it both for yellow science as well as for rocket science later on. With blue circuits and low density structure created and available on the bus, we can now start the design of the yellow science. Yellow science will also replace our robot rush that we built earlier because we already built flying robot frames as part of the yellow science, and it's easy to do an overflow so that we can have our robot production for both logistics and construction bots as part of the yellow science build. On top of that, I always take a little box for overflow of electric engines so that I can have 200 electric engines available by the time we need to make the rocket silo. With the yellow science now completed and working, it is now time to focus on researching. We need to focus on fusion power, power armor Mark II, and personal roboports to get a really nice upgrade for personal mobility and construction, as well as also building the logistics network. This is my preferred setup for power armor Mark II, as it strikes a good balance between charging power, running speed, and construction speed with the roboports. And this gives us a massive boost in building potential as we build new bases, and then at new designs we can have our local robots help out on top of the house robots. This is yet another major milestone and another step up the tech tree ladder for the future. The issue we have now and we need to prepare for is power. Even though we are good right now with coal power and solar while we have all the robots flying around, then we need something more for the future. And this needs to be alleviated before the final tech, as the final tech will unlock beacons and modules, which will increase our power consumption quite significantly. All the designs you're seeing here are from my Master Class series, which you can find on my channel. So if you want to understand the designs in detail or understand the design process, then please check it out in the playlist. This video is naturally skipping a lot of steps as I want to compress a lot of information into a single video. So if you're a beginner and maybe feel a bit overwhelmed, then let me recommend another series that I have, another playlist called Let's Start Automating. If you want to follow the construction more in detail of the base that we are currently viewing, then that is a series called Megabase-in-a-Book. And those are also available. All the links to the playlist are in the description below and also in the pinned comment. Our base is continually growing and Purple Science needs a lot of resources and the tech it unlocks is extremely power hungry. So before starting Purple Science, I will build a nuclear power plant and start the uranium processing. The biggest misconception about nuclear power is that you need the Covarex process to start it. That is absolutely not the case, and I explain this in very much detail and come to some a bit surprising conclusions in my Nuclear Power Master Class. So do check that out if you have doubts. The second misconception is about how much uranium you actually need. The answer is pretty much nothing. Now, before we get started on actually building a nuclear power plant, we need to expand our hub to make all the materials we need. And we need quite a lot of these, so we need to start building the stockpile while we set up the uranium mining. Even a small deposit of 1 million uranium is going to be plenty of uranium for your build, so don't even worry about it. As long as you have one setup, one build, then you will have enough forever and ever, unless you decide to nuke the entire map. We're going to need some special trains for handling the uranium because we need to bring in sulfuric acid to the mining operation as well as bringing the uranium back to the base. So I'm combining this on a 1-4 train where there's 1 wagon dedicated to sulfuric acid and 3 wagons dedicated to bringing back the uranium. And this will now just go back and forth. Only a single train is needed to support all the uranium we need for nuclear power and anything else we want. A single processing line is plenty for your uranium processing. I just bring 1 line in and 1 line out with the combined output. Once you have the output, you filter it into uranium-235 and uranium-238. Uranium-238 will be abundant, and you just need a big storage for that so it doesn't jam when your storage fills up. And then uranium-235, that's what you need for our nuclear fuel. This is brought into a box, and what I always do is I store the first 40 in a box, and then only the excess over 40 is being used to convert into nuclear fuel. So I don't use all of my uranium-235 for fuel. And the reason why I store 40 is because that's what I need to start Covarex, so we just have it in stock and ready when we unlock Covarex later on. You can build your uranium power plant as big or as small as you like. The smallest one that really makes sense in my opinion is a 4 reactor build, but I'm going to go with this 8 reactor build. It gives us 1120 megawatts of power and it fits very nicely into a city block. I'm relying on the logistics system to bring materials in, bring the fuel in because it's so low quantity, and also take the spent fuel out. This is yet another reason why I want to unlock yellow science before unlocking purple science. By far the hardest part of building a nuclear power plant is bringing enough water in. In this case, I need 12,000 water per second, so I'm bringing in 10 lines of water to this power plant and leaving it in. So if you want to figure out where the best place to place your nuclear power plant, the answer is it's more important to put it close to the water than it is to put it close to the actual uranium fuel. With our power sorted, it's time to move on to the purple science that is the main part of this chapter. Purple Science is surprisingly easy to build from a design perspective because it doesn't really require any new products. It just needs a lot of steel and a lot of red circuit. So probably a good idea to get those scaled up before getting started on this. I've upgraded my red circuit build to fill up the entire city block with red circuit production, and I've also upgraded my iron mining production as well as the steel smelting production just in preparation for getting Purple Science. Once the purple science is built, we can then take a look at the science that it unlocks and what we will get of benefits from this. Well, from a production perspective, we get yellow assemblers and we get blue belts. These are not as impactful as they may seem for launching a rocket. There's absolutely no need to upgrade to blue belts. They are extremely expensive, and you don't really have the throughput in order to really support the blue belts for very many things in this space. Yellow assemblers have one advantage that we will utilize, and that's the fact that it can include 4 productivity modules, and we'll use that a few places. Modules Mark III are essential for rockets, so those are also something that we will be using. Beacons is another essential. It's essential for our oil and rockets to get those rolling. And of course the Covarex that we mentioned earlier to make uranium processing easier. So basically what you can see is we get productivity improvements, but now real technological leap forwards with the purple science. Hence the reason why I do the yellow science before the purple science. With the purple signs now completed, we have a few things that we want to upgrade. The first thing I want to upgrade is implement a Coverx build. And this build that I have here does not require any circuits, and you can extend it with multiple iterations of it in sequence as long as you like, depending on how much you want of the uranium-235. I also want to upgrade the nuclear fuel with a yellow assembler and 4 Mark III modules for productivity. This is one of the items that uses our uranium-235, so let's try and get as high productivity yield from this as possible. We can also upgrade our oil and beacons, and here you could upgrade to Mark III modules, but you don't have enough Mark III modules available. So what I do is I just upgrade it with beacons and with modules Mark I, just to get as much oil out of our build as possible. This is the last major milestone before the final chapter towards the rocket launch, and a good time for me to say the classic YouTube seal, though with a twist. This video is sponsored by... in my case, these videos are sponsored by the community through the Patreon support. So thank you very much everyone who is supporting me and allowing me to stay unaffiliated with various brands. The Patreon supporters also get access to my save games for any of the games. So if you want to play around with this map or any of the map in any of the games that I play, then that's a little perk that I give to Patreon supporters. For the home stretch, we could limp our way and scrounge up materials for the rockets and just get off the planet. But I'd rather complete the base so that it's nice and neat and can continue to operate after the first rocket launch and continue potentially into a mega base from here on. Before we can get started on this, there is a few scaling options or scaling requirements we need to do. We need to scale up our green circuits to fill up the entire city block so that we can support the blue circuit build. With the green circuits done, we can now scale up the blue circuits to its final form so we can get the maximum productivity out of the blue circuit build. While we build our base, we've been stockpiling items for the rocket silos, such as the electric engines and concrete. Since the rocket silo is producing the most expensive intermediate products, this is a crucial place to put in 4 Mark III productivity modules in order to reduce the number of rocket parts needed for a launch from 1000 to 715 of each of the rocket parts. We already have the low density structure, but we will need to double this so we can support both the yellow signs and the rockets as well. Next on the list is rocket fuel. I usually have a small production just to supply the trains, but that is certainly not enough. So we need to do a proper design for this, and this is also where we need a lot more oil refining, so this needs to be fully upgraded with Mark III modules and beacons if you have that available. The final rocket part is rocket control units. Although this is a very simple build, it has put a massive strain on our blue circuit production and also our green and red circuit production. So rocket control units are using a lot of circuit parts. Although it's not necessary to complete the game, I do not want to launch a rocket without a satellite. So what we do is we lead our solar and accumulators that we have done earlier all the way up to the rocket silo so that we can use this together with the rocket parts, some radars and some blue circuits, and make a satellite that we will then craft and put into the rocket when it's done. At this point, we will lead all the items back into the rocket silo and just wait patiently for the rocket to build so that we can launch it and complete the game. I hope this video has been helpful in showing you in a very condensed manner how to play Factorio. I tried to include all the major points that are necessary in order to complete the game. As I mentioned, this channel has a lot more detailed content, so if you're a beginner, I'd recommend taking a look at the series called Let's Start Automating. If you're more interested in the design process, you can take a look at this playlist called Factorio Master Class, or if you want to see this base being built all the way from scratch in a more extensive manner, then that is the series called Base-in-a-Book. This also continues into the Megabase-in-a-Book, which leads all the way up to 10,000 signs per minute, so it becomes absolutely massive at some point. If you enjoyed this video, then please help share it so it reaches more people. More views tells me that this is the type of video you'd like to see more of. And a very big thanks goes out to the Patreon supporters who are sponsoring this channel and making it possible for me to continue to make videos like this. If you want to support the channel, then check the link in the description below to Patreon. Thank you very much for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, all that stuff. Until next time, take care, and you know it, always stay effective.